Welcome back to Scoreboard. I'm Kelsey Williams, joined by Mitchell Morgan and Spencer Griffin. Today we're going to talk about Football National Signing Day. One of the most arguably important days for UCA Bears, you could argue. Coming into signing day, what do you think that the areas that they need to focus on would be most?
Well, I think it was clearly defense. We saw all that they lost last year. Justin Love, Justin Hurd, Gaines, Peters, Winston. You're losing all these defensive players, especially defensive backs. So I figure that's the area going into signing day that they needed to focus on. And here in a minute, I'll tell you whether I thought they did, real well or whether I thought they struggled at that. But I think that that's the most obvious position you look at losing from last year, because you had all these people. Some were all Southland Conference, so I think that area was real strong last year, and they need to keep it strong. So they need to, they really need to recruit hard at that position.
Yeah, for sure. The defense is definitely something they need to focus on. And I was at National Signing Day yesterday, and I feel like he has a lot of freshmen coming in that could play the defensive back role. We'll talk about it later, whether or not he did really good. He does have one mid-year transfer coming in, tall, lengthy guy that plays corner. So I feel like he did okay. I feel like with this coach, he'll be able to take different positions and mold them into playing different spots on the field. He talked about that yesterday. He was like, well, we have some that can play defensive line, but we're going to try him an outside linebacker. So I feel like he did really well with what he could do coming in this late. I feel like it's going to be an interesting season to watch him.
Yeah, and do you think that he recruited well in these positions, or do you think he could have improved?
I feel, well, defensive back position, I feel like he could have done a little better. Watching all the people that he got yesterday, watching him go through the highlight film, it seemed like every other one was a wide receiver. It felt like he focused a lot on the offensive side of the ball, which, I don't blame him, because in this league you're going to have to score a lot of points because there's a lot of teams that score a lot of points on us. So I feel like he should have done a better job of focusing on the defensive back, maybe offensive line, but we should be stacked on the wide receiver position for a couple of years.
Numerically, I think he did pretty well. He got 6 defensive backs at signing day. 2 of them are mid-year transfers, 4 of them freshmen, which I think is a good mix, because you have some that can bring some experience, maybe some leadership, and then you have the others that can kind of wait in the wings, maybe even start if they're good enough and play behind those guys and really get to know the game better, not from a high school standpoint anymore, but from a college standpoint. And one of those mid-year transfers is from Mississippi Delta Community College, which is the area, of course, where Steve Campbell is coming from. So maybe he'll be a little familiar with Steve Campbell, and I think numerically they did well. Now, I haven't seen these guys play, obviously, in the UCA system. It'll be a little tough to tell. Now, as far as the linebacker position, yeah. I mentioned Justin Hurd leaving. They only signed one linebacker. I believe it was an outside linebacker, and I thought that was a little strange, but of course you can't recruit amazingly at every position. So I guess if you have to choose what part of the defense you want to maybe recruit a little less on, I guess they chose the linebacker position.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at the defensive backs that he got yesterday, a lot of them are over 6 feet tall, pretty big, and watching the highlight film, they hit pretty hard. One thing about the linebacker position that we can talk about, what he wants to do, or what he talked about yesterday, is that he wants to take a lot of defensive ends that he got signed and put them at outside linebacker, Mike or Sam. So he's definitely going to rotate a lot of people in. I think he has a lot of options, a lot of young talent coming in to play. I just feel like he has the hardest job for him is figuring out what position is best for those players, and it's going to be fun to watch him what he does in the offseason.
Yeah, rotating that defensive end back to linebacker is not a bad idea at all. We've seen the Giants do it with Tuck.
Yeah.
And, you've seen different teams do it and be successful at it. And you mentioned earlier a lot of the defensive backs he recruited were receivers, and you also said they can hit hard. That's a good combination to have. They have good hands. They can hit hard, so they can take the pick or they can knock the ball loose, which is going to be a good combination for him to try to propel this team forward and have a better record than they did last year.
Yeah, I think another thing that he focused on that we don't talk about is special teams. A lot of players that he got played on special teams in high school. They return kickoffs back, punt returns. So I think on the special teams with Javius Wilson and the other people that he gets, I think we should be pretty set.
Yeah, UCA's been pretty good at special teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of kickoff returns back for touchdowns.
So the Bears seem to be focusing on wide receivers still. Do you think this was wise by them, or do you think they should have focused on other areas?
Well, at first I thought it was kind of, I don't know, I didn't like the idea, because I thought, UCA has all these receivers, they have all this talent, and they're not really, they're losing a few this year, but not a whole lot. But then I look at it and you have Lewis, Watts, Wilson, Whitehead, Smith, but Smith and Wilson are the only underclassmen of that group. So after this year, he is going to be losing a lot. So I guess it's better to get a jump on the wide receiver position than anything else. And I think that is a good position that can translate into really multiple positions on the field. You can, run jet sweeps. You can put them at defense if they're good enough, like we talked about earlier. You can put them at running back if they have that strong suit, tight end. You can work them around in different areas, also with special teams. And I think in that aspect, it's not necessarily a bad idea as what I first thought.
Yeah, I think Coach Campbell went into the mindset of getting wide receivers, but not specifically getting them for the wide receiver position. Like you said, I feel like he can use them for a lot of different options. I don't think it's bad that we got a lot of wide receivers. I feel like they'll come in handy. You never know who's going to go down with an injury or who you can throw out on the field. So I feel like it's always a wise option to get wide receivers, but you cannot just load up on wide receivers and forget offensive line and everything else. So I feel like it was probably a good move, and I think he'll be okay with what he got.
Only problem I see with this is they've already got too many wide receivers. So yeah, they might be recruiting for the following years to come, but what happens to the people that are already here this year? Does that mean that they have more of a shot of getting to go to play, or?
Yeah, it's a possibility, but I think I'm going to stick with what we said. Maybe moving them around, not necessarily for a wide receiver position, but just an athlete in general. And you're going to have somebody return punts. Clay Murphy was back there. Coach Conk used that system of we're not going to return it back. We're not going to risk a fumble. We're going to do more of a sure-handed receiver back there and just have him catch it. I'm interested to see if Steve Campbell, does the same thing, or if he puts somebody speedy back there and hopes for a return. We've seen, different things. Obviously, Coach Conk did that. You've seen teams go with the speedy guy, and sometimes it works out for him, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's one good aspect that he could look forward to, having all these receivers. You can have punt returners, kick returners, even special teams defense, you can have them on because they are so fast, and some of them can hit.
Yeah, a lot of these receivers in high school played dual threat, played multiple positions. So a lot of them probably come in with the mindset that they're going to play a different position besides wide receiver. So that's good.
The Bears ended this season with a 7-5, 4-3 in conference. What do you expect to see next season? Do you think they're going to end up better, worse?
I feel like they'll probably be close around the same. I feel like the teams in the conference are getting better. Southeastern Louisiana is going to be really good. Sam Houston State's always going to be good because they get recruits in Texas. I'm interested to see how SFA does with Coach Conk there now. That's going to be interesting. But I feel like we'll be middle of the pack again. I'm not going to be, I'd be really surprised if we came out on top. I'd be really surprised if we finished to the lower bottom. I feel like Coach Campbell's coming in with the mentality of, I'm getting good recruits. I got 26 to sign. I feel like we have a good enough team to where we can finish and maybe make the playoffs this year. So I feel like he's coming in with a lot of confidence, and I feel like middle of the pack's probably good, fourth or third.
Yeah, I think they will do better than they did last year. I think they have I think they're going to have an established running game, and I'm going to talk about that a lot later. But I think Campbell's coming in here maybe a little more run-oriented than UCA has been in the past. They already have veteran quarterbacks, some veteran wide receivers, and I think they can work off the experience of those players. And the only thing that I'm going to question is the defense, as we talked about earlier. Losing so many defensive backs and really defensive players total, I think is going to be a hard adjustment. But if he can get his team on the right track on that side of the ball, I think this team could really do better than they did last year. Some people saw it as a letdown, but it was an injury-stricken team. So really where they finished last year I don't think was too bad. But I think they could potentially do better this year.
Yeah, and the running back position, man, I think we can go on for days talking about what he's going to do because he has so many options, and we'll talk about that later. But, yeah, I feel like, I think he's coming in with the mentality of, hey, this team's going to be good, and that's really good for the players to know.
I think he has a strong mentality, but I think also he's thinking to himself, do I want to mould this team and start from the bottom and work them up? I mean, every coach doesn't want to do that, but will he have to do that? Or do you think he has an established enough team that he can work with what he's got and they will end up, like you said, middle of the pack? I mean, I'm just worried what's going to happen if he's bringing in all these new people, new coaching staff, new strength and conditioning coach. Do you think that it will affect the team?
Well, I think that I think Campbell's just got so much experience. You see his record. Every school he's taught at, he's done or coached at, he's done extremely well. And I heard from Winrick Smothers that this new conditioning coach is the real deal.
Yeah,
I heard that he's really good and he doesn't mess around in the weight room. So I think that Steve Campbell, with all this under his belt already, and then what he has set in place here with the coaching staff, some retained, some new, I think is going to be a good mixture. And you mentioned the 26 recruits earlier. That's a great number to have, especially in your first year coaching here at UCA. I think he's really going to thrive off that.
Especially a lot of them being from out of the state. He got some from Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and that's really good for a first-year coach. Just being in the room yesterday at signing day, the atmosphere was like electric. Like it was kind of like there wasn't that many people there, but they were just, you could tell there was a positive vibe going around for the football team. Like, hey, we're going to do really good. And I feel like I don't think he has to start from the bottom. You look at the quarterback position. He has 2 quarterbacks coming back that have playing time under UCA and know how the system works. So I feel like since he has quarterbacks that have played before, he doesn't have to start early from the bottom, because that's one position that is basically leads the offense. You have Taylor Reed and Ryan Howard, which I'm not sure which one's going to get the start or who's going to be the starting quarterback, but both of them have enough experience and are going to go into the game saying, hey, I'm going to win this for our team, So I don't think he'll have to start from the bottom. I think he can take this team, build off of it, and maybe get us back to prominent.
And speaking of quarterbacks, he's got a pretty good opportunity to keep the quarterback position thriving here at UCA. He kept Nathan Brown for the quarterbacks coach. We all know what he's done for UCA and what he can do as a coach. And he brought in one more freshman quarterback. I believe his name is Hunter Moore.
Yeah.
And so I think he's going to look to groom him under Howard and under Reed.
Yeah, he's a pretty big guy, and that guy's going to get a lot of experience under Taylor Reed and Ryan Howard. Watching his highlight film yesterday, he's a pretty fast guy, can get around the pocket. So look for the quarterback position to be sealed for a couple of years.
I think it's exciting that everything that's going on in the new coach and everything like that, but what recruit are you most excited to see play?
You go ahead, because there's several that I want to talk about.
Well, yeah, there's a lot I would talk about too, but I think there's one in particular that it's just going to seem like my best friend. I'm going to talk about him so much. His name is Dominique Thomas. And he's 5'10", 209 pounds. They have him listed at 215 on the program. But watching his highlight tape was incredible. He's from Jacksonville, Alabama, straight out of high school. So he's a freshman. He's got 4 good years at UCA if he can, stay healthy. But through his highlight tape, it's like nobody could bring him down. He broke so many tackles, and UCA struggled so bad at the run game. They just all pass, and it's kind of getting monotonous, and teams are starting to figure that out. But I think with Campbell coming in and with this recruit, even though he is a freshman, I think he could potentially, end up with the start. But I think he'll at least get some repetitions in some games and really end up being a pretty beastly running back. I think he could be good. He's got a lot of pounds. He could break tackles, and he's fast. He had a 4.5 40 listed on Huddle, so I think he's going to be good. Yeah,
that's a really good pick. He's going to be really fun to watch. I got 2. I think Isaiah Skeleton, who we interviewed yesterday at the National Signing Day, a real tall, lengthy guy, got long arms, plays cornerback. He's like always around the ball when there's a play. He's a lockdown corner. Watching his tape yesterday, he looked really good. And also Josiah Wimmer. He's a tight end, about 265. I think that's what they listed him. A pretty big guy. Watching his precision routes, he looks really good in the red zone. I feel like if any freshmen are going to get a start, it would be him as a tight end position, because I feel like he could come in handy in the red zone, especially being 265 and running precision routes. I feel like we can really use him because with Chase Dixon gone, I feel like Ryan Howard can just throw it up and he'll catch it.
Yeah.
So all these freshman recruits, who do you think has the most likely chance to start?
Well, I will clearly say Dominique Thomas.
And definitely Josiah. I think the tight end position is something that we could fill and definitely use more of. I feel like Coach Campbell thinks that this guy can be the next big thing because he's so big and such a good route runner. He definitely probably get a start.
And that could be extremely beneficial if he uses 2 tight ends, having, if you move Jose Moore to tight end or Thomas Hart, and then you have the freshman on the other side of the ball, you could have a tight end game with your very talented receivers. It could be a dangerous team.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you think the Bears should be focusing more on these freshmen or junior college transfers?
I mean, shoot, use both of them if you can. I mean, there's a lot of JUCO transfer. I think, they get 1 JUCO transfer. So, I mean, obviously you're going to have to rely on a lot of more freshmen than you are JUCO transfers right now. But if you can use a lot of freshmen and put them in the system and get them obviously putting a freshman into a big game up front is definitely going to be something that probably not going to work out. But they'll get a lot of experience under their belt. Playing Texas Tech first is probably going to be a really big game. Hopefully you can use a lot of freshmen that they can get experience because, Texas Tech and the Southland Conference can't really compare to each other. But if they can get experience versus Texas Tech, then coming into the Southland Conference, they should be more confident in their game. So I think freshmen get a lot of better playing time.
Yeah, a lot of people disagree with wanting to focus on the freshmen, but I think UCA with a smaller school kind of needs to do that to be able to develop these players into 4-year, 3-year players and have them have the experience and also the leadership once they get up there. But speaking of experience and leadership, that's what the JUCO transfers bring. And so it's kind of tough, and it's nice to have a mixture of those players, especially when you need something in the short term. For example, the defensive back game. You're going to need to bring in some junior college transfers, some mid-year transfers, which clearly Coach Campbell did. And I think that's smart to get some experience in there and then have some freshmen waiting in the wings. I think that's very wise, and it could proved to be a very good strategy.
Yeah, Coach Campbell has been around the league long enough to where he knows that these freshmen are going to come in and be superstars, but he knows how to work with them, and he'll get them confident, and he'll get them going, and I think we'll be fine in a couple of years.
Now, one other area I do want to talk about is the offensive line. I noticed he recruited a lot of them. I believe he had 5 recruits from the offensive line, maybe 6. But I mean, listen to the stature of these guys: 6'3", 265, 6'5", 300, 6'4", 300, 6'3", 288, 6'2", 285. Those are some big guys, and UCA really needs bodies, especially with people getting hurt. You know, last year a lot of injuries really killed UCA. The line didn't necessarily protect the best last year. It could have done better. Could have been worse too. But having all these big offensive linemen that could potentially transfer to defensive linemen if he needed them to could be extremely beneficial. I think he really attacked the offensive line recruiting strategy well, and I think it's going to pay off for him.
Yeah, for sure. He got a lot of offensive linemen from the state of Texas, a lot of big guys that played really big high school football down in the state of Texas. So I feel like they can come in and maybe make a big contribution to this UCA football team. And I feel like on the offensive line, with the running backs that he has, he needs big guys up front to where he can decide, hey, which running back am I going to use in certain positions and certain down distances. So I feel like he has a lot of options, and he couldn't ask for a better way to start the season off.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, the running game, because I think that's where it starts, is the offensive line. Of course, the passing game thrives off the offensive line blocking well for your quarterback, but I think making holes for the running backs to make it easier to get those chunks of yardage rather than getting 1 or 2 yards per run is really going to help UCA's run offense, whether it's a freshman, whether it's still who they have, or what they decide to do back there.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say, I think also we do already have some big guys like TJ Randall, CJ Simon. I think, like these guys you've mentioned, you're adding some big strength in there. And with the ones that we've already got, I mean, you'd think that it can only excel. They have recruited a lot of freshmen, but I think he can mould them the way he wants to mould them. They're obviously coming out from high school, and it's a complete different ball game when you get there. It's not going to be as easy as you think it is, and it's going to be a lot tougher. But I think with already this experience that they've got, and being big guys being able to help these guys, I think it's going to be a real good time for these guys.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to be on the other side of the line of scrimmage from these guys.
It's going to be interesting.
So, do you think that UCA answered the lingering question about the running backs?
I'm going to say yes, because I think Dominic Thomas's tape just blew me away. And like I said, it's going to sound like he's my best friend right now, and hopefully he produces. But I'm going to bring this up. Last year, I predicted Jatavius Wilson to be the standout recruit.
Yeah.
He did pretty well last year, so hopefully my prediction is right this year, and Dominic Thomas really blows us away other than just his high school videotape.
You're saying Dominic Thomas is going to come in and be the starting running back for UCA?
I'm not going to say right away, but I think...
Who would you say starts the year off for us against Texas Tech?
It's going to sound a little surprising, I guess, but I think maybe Denzel Williams.
Okay. Well, I don't think... The only way I think that this lingering question about the running back is going to be resolved is when he picks one that starts the game. Mm-hmm. We won't know a definite answer until who starts the game against Texas Tech and who starts the game after that. For me, I feel like Dominic Thomas has a really good chance to be the starting running back. I mean, none of them have showed that they deserve the chance. So he's coming in saying, hey, nobody else has showed I can come in here. They've seen my tape. They know how I am. I can run the ball, and I have a chance. But for me, I think, Blake Beasley or Denzel or whoever, I don't know. But I'm going to say that he has enough running backs to throw them all back there and all get a fair chance. But I think the question is still lingering until he decides to pick one.
I can see where you would say that it would be up in the air with all those running backs fighting for that position, 4 or 5 at this point, it seems like.
Right, at least he don't have just one freshman coming in. At least he has a lot of options.
Yeah.
I have a point to pick with you. So Dominic Thomas, 5'10", 209-pound, Alabama. There was a lingering question about recruiting running backs, and he only did get one, and he is from high school. Do you think he maybe should have looked into going for junior college transfers and maybe getting one more? If he's only recruiting one guy, if he goes down, or hopefully nothing happens, but if something does happen,
I think he's solid at the running back position. Yeah. I'm not going to say he's great, but he's got depth for sure. You've got Willie Matthews, Blake Beasley, even Denzel Williams, Jeff Anderson from Conway, who got recruited last year, Kelton Warren. You have all of these running backs, just so many. And I don't think you need to pack that position too much, or they could really be in trouble and get confused as to who to start, and then that would, confuse the running game even more. So I think one running back was good, and I'm glad he picked a freshman, because I think to groom him and get him to where he's a junior or senior just playing lights out if he can would be tremendous, rather than just having a junior college transfer that may come in and have 1 or 2 good years if he has that.
Yeah, I just think getting him and all the statistics that he has got, and he's quick and everything, that looks good, but I mean, you just really don't want anything to happen to him, do you? Because, I mean, you've talked him up as being your best friend. I expect big results come from this guy now.
I am too. I hope he does. I hope he produces and shows that I'm right.
Do you see the star of the offense next year being somebody that we already had, or a freshman?
That's tough, but I think it'll probably be somebody that that UCA already has. Probably a wide receiver, Desmond Lewis, Desmond Smith, somebody like that.
I feel like, for sure. I feel like the offense is probably going to be loaded down with people that we already have. The defense side of the ball, though, that's a really tricky question. I feel like a freshman might stand out this year for us.
Well, I think they might have to. Also, with all the DBs being gone, you have to put at least one freshman in there.
Look for it to be an outside linebacker that's a freshman. A lot of them that we got are pretty good.
We've had some pretty big predictions today, so thank you both for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Channel 6 Sports for Scoreboard. Thank you.